Yo, what's up, and Happy New Year! This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with another Ranked and Reviewed. And it's the first one of 2022. And today we are doing a band that I had not anticipated doing for either a while, or frankly, they just might have not been on my list, but I actually like them a lot, and it's Underoath. Underoath, man. They had just put out a new album in 2022. I forgot what led me to search them on Spotify. I saw they had a new album, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I haven't heard them in a while. Listened to them religiously in a while. Religiously. May as well do this while they're fresh. And yeah, I haven't put out a Ranked and Reviewed since Black Label Society around the end of November. Holidays, yada, yada, yada. I have been working on other videos, though. So, the channel's still active. Thanks to everybody who's been subscribing lately. Somehow, over the holidays, I gained like another 50, even after doing nothing. So, thanks. Be sure to check out the other Ranked and Reviewed videos that I've done. I mainly do metal music, but I've done other genres, alternative, rock, a little bit of pop punk. Mostly metal, though, but today we're going more hardcore, metalcore, depending on what have you. With Underoath. Now, I mostly listened to them in 2012 for some reason. I listened to, what we would call their golden years. Basically, Only Chasing Safety, Lost in the Sound of Separation, Define the Great Line, Disambiguation, all the big albums from the mid to late 2000s up till 2010. And I saw them live. I saw them play Disambiguation live while they were touring it. And honestly, I wasn't a huge Underoath fan at the time, so I didn't realize what I was missing. But I did enjoy what I saw. It's just one of those bands that took me a while to grow on me. I just, during the mid-2000s, during that hardcore, emo, alternative, metalcore, all the booms, all the great shit that I grew up with, Underoath was just one of those bands that flew under the radar for me. It's not that I didn't like them, it's just the style wasn't my favorite at the time. But holy fuck, do I love this band. And I did not realize how many albums I had missed out on. I did listen to Erase Me when it came out in 2018, the little comeback album, but I didn't realize that they had another vocalist prior to Spencer. So there were 3 albums before They're Only Chasing Safety that I wasn't familiar with. So I went back, listened to what I was familiar with. Basically, out of 9 albums, I only was familiar with 4 or 5, but I have gotten on the other ones, listened to them all a couple of times. I have my ranking. It wasn't easy at first, but I got it down to a T. And I got top 10 tracks at the end. So let's go ahead and get into it. Bottom spot got a 7.8 out of 10. Top spot got a 9. So their worst album is still good, and their best album is excellent. But let's fucking get into it, man. At the bottom spot, we have their first studio release, Active Depression. Now, again, I think the guy's name is Dallas. I think that's the name of the vocalist before Spencer came in. Underoath sounded different first couple of albums before they started changing around album 3 or 4. They were thrashier, more metalcore, some death metal elements, even a little black metal elements. But yeah, Active Depression's heavy as fuck. But yeah, it's got that nostalgic sound. It came out in 1999, so for the time it was pretty solid. But for your standard kind of traditional Underoath fan like myself, this was a little jarring to listen to. It was a little, it put its best foot forward with Heart of Stone, but then over time the album just got a little weaker, more repetitive. Some of the songs were way too fucking long. It's a 46-minute album, but there's only 6 tracks, so there's 1 or 2 tracks that are maybe 10 minutes, but yeah, the songs are too long. They just don't flow super well, but there is great guitar work, there's great vocal work, but it's just a really raw album. It sounds more like a roided out EP rather than an album, but it is 46 minutes. If you're more of your old school metalhead, you know, you like some of that older raw stuff, you don't like the hardcore emo, built back in, I'm a prisoner, you don't like any of that stuff, then the older Underoath might be your jam. But for me, Active Depression was just a band putting out solid demos before they found their sound and got fucking great. So bottom spot, still worth a listen. There's alternate album covers. They are available on Spotify. I think I'll put it here on the slideshow. There's the original artwork, and then there's the new one. So that's what that looks like. Bottom spot, Active Depression. Next up, at the number 8 spot, we have their newest album, Voyeurist. A little disappointed that their newest album that inspired me to do this video this soon placed this low. But, you know, I listened to the 10-track album a couple times over, and I had a hard time getting into it, but I still barely gave it like an 8 out of 10. Here's why, though. I would say it was still good and listenable relative to other Underoath stuff. Towards the end, it really picked up in quality, though. So I was bored with Damn Excuses, Hallelujah, that I don't get that hook. I'm not a fan of it. I was just really bored throughout the entire album, except for the final 2 tracks. The final 2 tracks actually saved the album from being the worst one. Numb and Pneumonia. Pneumonia is actually one of my favorite Underoath songs now. So great single there. I think that song is actually a single. But I was just bored. Like I'm like also simultaneously cooking dog food. I make homemade dog food for my dogs because I'm a great dog dad. There's really nothing original sounding on this album. It was a little bit more electronic, which doesn't automatically dock points from it or anything like that, but it isn't like my favorite sound or era of Underoath, and just nothing really original, nothing exciting here, no major hooks or dynamics that really got me excited. But I thought Pneumonia was a really well-written song. It gripped the emotions, the key, the placement of instruments, the tone. And same thing with Numb, but Pneumonia. Those songs saved the album, but the rest of it's boring. No fun riffs. Spencer always sounds fucking great on vocals, so that's probably why I still called this album at least good until I got to the end, because Spencer still sounds great. And, you know, so does Aaron, but I love Spencer's vocals, man. But yeah, so they got a little ethereal on this one, but there's still some heavy moments, but it isn't a great album. Number 7 is their second studio album, Cries of the Past. Now, unlike the prior album, Active Depression, it's still heavy, it's still raw, tremolo picking fucking blast beats like death metal sounds, even a little bit of black metal sounds with some of the synths or some of like the growling vocals. The song progressions are tighter, and they flow better than Active Depression, and the guitar work is even better, actually, in my opinion. So that's why Cries of the Past is definitely the better old album, which, again, I was not familiar with these albums before. I had to like go on Wikipedia and see what albums were first. But yeah, Cries of the Past, best song on this album is Giving Up What Hurts the Most. Last track is kind of the weakest one, the self-titled track, but it still opens on a strong note with the last, maintains a pretty decent amount of momentum throughout, but just like Active Depression, you know, just not a catchy, hooky album that would grip me right away, but if I needed something heavier and thrashier to just kind of work out and fuck around to, this is a solid album. It's definitely worth a listen to. It's 5 tracks at 42 minutes, so some of the songs run a little long, but they definitely flow a little better than Active Depression. But once we get past these bottom 3 albums, we start to get into some higher tier territory. So let's go ahead and get to the number 6 spot, which is their comeback album, Erase Me, from 2018. Now, when I first listened to this, not in 2018, but a couple weeks ago, my first listen, I was like, God, this album is weak. What a boring comeback album. But I was like, Underoath can't release a bad album. They're a great band. This album is actually a grower. In my opinion, it gets better with each listen, but I still maintain that it opens on a weak note. It has to start somewhere, and Rapture, much like Voyeurist, opening track that's supposed to be like heavy and tone setting doesn't do it for me. Rapture, not a great single. Don't care for it. I know it was like big at the time, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, Underoath's back!" Bleh. I was excited too, but they did not put their best foot forward with the first couple of tracks. It picks up momentum with On My Teeth and Wake Me. The hooks on those songs are fantastic. Bloodlust is another weak track, but the outro is awesome. It flows better once you get to songs like Sync With You and I Hate It. Those are my favorite tracks on the album. Those actually have hooks, and the dynamics and the diversity in sounds within those tracks are awesome. And then the last 4 tracks, Hold Your Breath, No Frame, and Motion, and I Gave Up, are all good songs. Like, they're all like good enough to where I gave this album like a B minus. So it's worth listening to. It gets better on subsequent listens, but I definitely don't think that it's the big comeback album after a 6-year, was it like a 7-year? 6 or 7 year fucking hiatus. I don't think that this album had the passion or the power that their previous ones did. But if you're an Underoath fan, which I am, you're still happy to have received this as some sort of gift. But if I were to say anything about Erase Me, it's probably overrated. Still worth a listen, though. Ha! My dog farted. I don't know if you guys heard that. All right. Give me 1 segundo. All right, I'm trying to make these videos a little tighter and quicker, so let's go ahead and do like maybe a little bit of rapid fire with these next ones. At the number 5 spot, sitting right in the middle of this ranking, we have Changing of Times from the year 2002. Their last album with Dallas, Salad, before they got to getting Spencer in the band. Changing of the Times is pretty solid. I think it's only marginally better than Erase Me, but it's that perfect, almost that perfect median between maybe some of the extreme styles that you heard in Act of Depression and Cries of the Past. The median point between that and what you would get in, of course, They're Only Chasing Safety, heading more in like an emo, hardcore, still semi-metalcore direction. Cries of the Past is kind of splits the difference with all that. I enjoy listening to this album from front to back. There's a lot of great hooks on there, a lot of great guitar work, with the added bonus of their, like I said, being better dynamics and better hooks, and the songs being fucking shorter. Like, the album length might actually be around the same, but breaking it down into more songs that are more easily digestible makes it a better listening experience. So I definitely like the old school Underoath sound. You know, got more harder screamo sounds. And yeah, it kind of invokes nostalgia. You know, it kind of reminds me of like mid-2000s emo alternative, like Taking Back Sunday sounds like that. Best tracks on the album are last 2 tracks. Short of Daybreak and Alone in December, great songs. I also enjoy Letting Go of Tonight. Yeah, a lot of great diversity on this album. Very underrated and overlooked, in my opinion. Next up at the number 4 spot, this is where we get into like the more high tier material with fucking Spencer, man. Even though Erase Me and Act of Depression Voyeurist have them. Number 4 spot goes to Disambiguation. What an underrated album. Just because Aaron Gillespie, Gerapetto, Jaleel, just because Aaron's not on this album doesn't mean this album suffers. Spencer does a great job switching back and forth between clean vocals and aggressive vocals. A lot of heavy material in this, a lot of great melodic material. It has a lot of the sounds of the prior third albums, but it still kind of maintains its own identity. I like the drop B tracks like Paper Lung and Divine Eradication, opening up with like those heavy gutturals and chugs. Like, they just sound fucking great. My favorite songs are Catch Myself, Catching Myself, Paper Lung, Divine Eradication, and a song that I slept on for a while, which is now like a new favorite, is My Deteriorating Incline. Just that fucking rapid fire punk drumming and like blistering guitar tone with like the heavy vocals. What a heavy, well executed album. The back half of the album is where a lot of the golden consistency are. So I think, much like Changing of Times, This is probably a very underrated, overlooked album because it doesn't have Aaron on it. Aaron is a vital member of Underoath, but Spencer, in my opinion, Spencer fucking makes the band. Even though I'm a huge fan of the instrumentalists in the band, especially the guitar players, I fucking love the riffs. I love the guitar work of Underoath. I'm a huge fan of it. Great drumming also, obviously great bass playing, great synth, piano, stuff like that. But Spencer really brings it all together with his exceptionally diverse talents on the vocals. And that shines well in Disambiguation. That's why it sits comfortably at the number 4 spot. Album that's marginally better, though, at the number 3 spot is Lost in the Sound of Separation. This might be their heaviest album. If I'm not mistaken, I think Adam Deutschwitz, however you say his last name, from Killswitch Engage, I think this is, we're getting around the era, the mid-2000s, where Adam D of Killswitch was either producing or behind the knobs, the mixing board, what have you. This album just sounds incredible. It's big, it's loud, the guitars are aggressive, the drums are aggressive, the vocals complement it really well. You do have some of the powerful melodies and hooks from Define the Great Line. Sorry about all the excessive noise. I hope it's not reducing the quality of the video. But I think much like Disambiguation, this album is also underrated, but it's got more high-quality tracks. Like the first 3 songs, all my favorite songs, Breathing in a New Mentality, Anyone Can Dig a Hole, Fault Line, Fault of Mine. The outro of that track is incredible. I think The Only Survivor, track 5, has like this really cool like dum 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 with like this insane bass and tribal drum beat with like a great ethereal synthesizer background, and it just sounds incredible. Like the dynamics, the sequencing of this album is really great. It just doesn't have as many hooks as the top 2 albums, but Lost in the Sound of Separation was an album that I truly enjoyed when I got into it in 2012 during my Underoath phase. And there's really no tracks on this album that I dislike. It closes on a pretty solid note with Too Bright to See and Desolate Earth, kind of like your softer tracks. But at the number 3 spot, this album does sit there comfortably. But let's get into like the really high quality, top tier material where like the strengths of albums like Disambiguation and Lost in the Sound shine even brighter. In albums like the number 2 spot, They're Only Chasing Safety. Now, it seems like the unanimous consensus is my top 2 albums are probably everybody's top 2 fucking favorite albums. I'm not breaking any new ground here when I say that an album like They're Only Chasing Safety, every single track is fucking memorable. The hooks, the potency of the time, the year 2004, all this emo, hardcore, slightly metalcore, intensely catchy guitar work with great hooks, great intros, great tone. Best tracks on the album are the first one, Young and Aspiring, and Down, Set, Go. I'm a huge fan. The album does get better with extra listens. Like, I used to get annoyed with the song A Boy Brushed Red. I used to think it was like, oh, this is just some pansy emo crap. But it's actually pretty hard-hitting. I enjoy it. Same thing with I'm Content with Losing and Some Will Seek Forgiveness. The closing tracks, those got better for me as well. A lot of great, memorable guitar openings with songs like Impact of Reason. I think I Don't Feel Receptive. But yeah, They're Only Chasing Safety gets a 8.5 out of 10, maybe a little higher, like just a solid B album, because this is Spencer's debut. He sounds great, but this isn't my favorite album with him vocally. But it is awesome. It is easily their second best album, and it does fit the times perfectly. But I do want to talk about their best album, which is easily, without a doubt, always has been, probably always will be, Define the Great Line. Every band from that era has a freaking crown jewel or gem or magnus opus. And, hold on a sec. Magnus opus! Okay, so, yeah, or like, these bands have like a generational album, an album that defines a generation. Kill Switch's End of Heartache, Esley Dying's Shadows Are Security, fucking Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory, and then Underoath's Define the Great Line. Some fans might say that Define the Great Line is their second best, and, you know, They're Only Chasing Safety is their best. That's fine. With Underoath, it really does come down to preference, because like I said, they cover a lot of different styles over the years, and they kind of do maintain a theme, a through line, if you will. But Define the Great Line, just from a musical perspective, is untouchable. From a vocal perspective, this is probably Spencer at his absolute best. I know I don't talk about Aaron a whole lot. Aaron sounds pretty much good all the time, but I think Aaron sounds at his best on this album too. The only album that might compare vocally are Lost in the Sound of Separation or Disambiguation, because Spencer just gets better and better. But Define the Great Line just easily has their best songs. For my top 10, I tried to limit it to like 3 tracks from a single album, but Define the Great Line, out of their 10 rateable tracks, I didn't include Salamander, or whatever the fuck that song is called. But every song is like north of an 8.5, maybe even an 8.6. And this album has their excellent tracks that are north of a 9. You got A Moment Suspended in Time. You got Writing on the Walls, their best fucking song. That song's like their most popular for a reason. Like when you hear this album, you can easily hear where so many other bands drew their influence from. When I hear this album, probably one of the absolute best drop D albums ever written, making drop D sound heavy as shit. And I came up during a time where like drop D and drop C were kind of like the don't mince words here, but they were kind of the standard with like metalcore and heaviness. And then of course over time, drop B, drop A, 7 strings, 8 strings, 9 strings, fuck it. But just the polish of this album. Drop D sounds exceptionally heavy. Here, every song is memorable, just like They're Only Chasing Safety, but just kick it up a couple notches. The riffs are catchy. The phrasing of the lyrics, the vocals, they just really grip you. You just really feel the sense of urgency and passion and hunger with this album. Just that perfect mix of some metalcore, but mostly like hardcore. Like it sounds really fucking good, like mainstream hardcore elements here. So I slept on this album. You know, I heard Underoath a little bit back in the mid 2000s when they were like at their peak. But again, I slept on this band a lot. Eventually I got into them quite a bit. The outro to Returning Empty-Handed is huge. Casting Such a Thin Shadow, where you've got like that beautiful ambiance. The more melodic aspects of this album, like the closing track, To Whom It May Concern, are perfect juxtapositions to the heaviness that ensued from songs like Moving for the Sake of Motion, or Everyone Looks So Good From Here. Just so many catchy, heavy-ass riffs. And again, Writing on the Walls, man. That song has always gripped my fucking heart. That bridge, you cannot fuck with that bridge. What else can I say that probably hasn't been said before? Define the Great Line really was them defining their great line. They raised the bar fucking high for a generation and made an incredible album. So, quickly recap. Least favorite to most favorite. Act of Depression, Voyeurist, Cries of the Past, Erase Me, Changing of Times, Disambiguation, Lost in the Sound of Separation, They're Only Chasing Safety, and Define the Great Line. And would you look at that? An album with Dallas made it in the top 5. Top 10 tracks, in my opinion, are My Deteriorating Incline, Desperate Times, from Lost in the Sound of Separation, Anyone Can Dig a Hole, Moving for the Sake of Motion, Pneumonia, Young and Aspiring, Down, Set, Go, and my top 3 are all from Define the Great Line. You ever So Inviting? Oh, it's getting harder and harder. Sorry, my voice is fucked right now. A Moment Suspended in Time. Held captive, I'm a prisoner. Sorry, I can't sing right now. Forever. And then, of course, their best track is Writing on the Walls. So, welcome back to the Jay Dennis channel, where I'm going to be doing a lot of ranked and reviews. I got like another 20 or 30 fucking bands on the docket. ranging across a series of different genres, mostly metal. Eventually, I'm going to do a band. I'm thinking of doing Fall Out Boy, where there's guaranteed there's going to be a shit album in the mix. I'm not going to go, every album is good. There's going to be a band that I do where there's at least 1 or 2 garbage albums in the mix because a band either completely sold out in the worst possible way or whatever. I'm excited to get there and have a little bit more mix and less like 3-way or 4-way ties between otherwise solid discographies. So yeah, subscribe, check out the Ranked and Reviewed playlist. If you want to see other aspects of my life, check out the rest of the channel. But beyond that, I will catch you on the next one, and peace!